Doesn't it seem like yesterday when apps were brand new on the scene and we were saying, there's an app for that? Well, today there is definitely an app for that. Probably several. An app for everything you can possibly imagine. And I can tell you that one of the best uses of apps that I keep in my phone is to track my habits. It's so important to keep your habits tracked so you can make sure that you are on track for the goals that you've set for yourself. The problem we run into can be that we have an app to track our fitness, an app to track our nutrition, an app to track how much water we're drinking, an app to track maybe your prayer life, your Bible study, your journaling, your sleep, whatever it might be. And you just have to go to several different apps to track all of those things every day. That can be inconvenient and time consuming and also discouraging to us really keeping up with what we need to keep up with. My guest today came up with a solution for that. Dr. Len Lopez joins me today on the podcast to talk about his 5 steps a day habit tracker. It's a holistic tracker for mind, body, and spirit. He's going to tell you all about it on the podcast today. It's a good conversation. Stay tuned.
Nobody's ever gonna take your place. Yeah, I think we should meet in the middle. I follow you cause you're the light of the day. I need you like you need me, it's so simple. It's so simple.
Welcome back to the Gen X Juggler podcast. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so excited to share a conversation with Dr. Len Lopez today. He's a nutrition and fitness expert and the creator of 5 Steps a Day, a habit tracker for mind, body, and spirit. Dr. Len Lopez, welcome to the Gen X Juggler podcast. It's great to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me, Deb. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Oh, me too. How did you first get your idea to start the 5 steps?
Well, 5 steps is something that it's just something that just started producing for the general public, I guess, for lack of a better word. But I've been doing 5 steps for myself for 20 some odd years. Probably at the turn of the century, that's when I really started and created and everything. And it's just a simple way for me to track, how well I'm doing. It's my accountability system. And I used to use just a calendar. And I know on my calendar, if I was trying to get better, I was in my early 30s in the dating life and just being single, and so on my calendar I would check. I had my own little legend I would write as far, hey, did I exercise today? Did I work out? I would put my little notation on there. Did I practice my golf? I wanted to become a better golfer. Did that. Did I practice my dancing? Because I wanted to be a better dancer. I did that. Did I practice playing the guitar? I wanted to learn how to play guitar. Did I do enough of that during the week? I wanted to be a better artist, or I wanted to be an artist. And so I sort of took classes doing that and everything. And so it was just my way of just jotting everything down on the calendar. And at the end of the month, I'd look at my little legend and see, okay, I did good exercising. I played golf. I stretched enough. I danced enough to make myself feel like I was getting somewhere. And so that's how I really kind of started it, as far as tracking myself, because it was just a way to track myself. But it really wasn't until about, as far as bringing it public, as
Mhm.
far as 5 steps, I was being interviewed for a magazine from Authority Magazine. They were asking me, we did an article once on health and fitness. They came back about a year later. They said, Doc, we really like the story we did on health and fitness. We want to kind of do another story similar, but we want to really cover along the whole body, mind, spirit thing. Is that something that you can, because is that groovy with you or not? And I thought about it and everything, and so I responded. I slept on it because, I, being a Christian believer and everything, I said in my practice I didn't promote it or anything like that, or I just try to walk the walk. But I said, sure. And I showed them what I was doing, my 5 steps, what they were and everything. And it's just a simple accountability ledger that in 2 minutes you can track how well you're feeding body, mind, and spirit. And they go, wow, we've never seen anything like this. This is so unique. And, you're really tapping into all those visual learners because you're shading in your footsteps. You're visualizing, you're seeing forward progress. And I told them, it's kind of like Seinfeld's calendar. If you're familiar with Jerry Seinfeld's calendar, he used to have a saying that if he wanted to be successful comedian, he needed to write 10 jokes a day. That was his
Yeah.
practice, his training, writing 10 jokes a day. And if he did, he would put an X on the day. And then if he did it tomorrow, he put another X and another X and another X. Some days he wouldn't, but he could always look and say, gosh, I don't like seeing that blank space. I like seeing the X's. It made him feel better. And what people don't realize, that, or he didn't realize, or maybe he did, that, yeah, you're getting this little endorphin hit when you see that little dopamine endorphin hit when you see all the X's there. And with 5 steps, and I'll share the steps here in a minute, but when you shade in your steps, the 5 you have to shade in each day, I mean, you don't have to, but to help track your habits and attitude, you can start visually seeing, I took 5 steps today. Yesterday I took 4 steps. So tomorrow, maybe you only took 2 steps one day, or 1 step and 1 step and 1 step. Then you can at least look at yourself real quick. It's accountability and feedback. Did I do the things I need to do to get where I want to be? So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. That's great. And that's a great question to ask ourselves. Am I doing what I need to do to get where I need to be and want to be? But also in this busy phase of life, in midlife, having a simple accountability tracker that we can just glance at and see where we're at and instantly give ourselves that little reward of, ooh, I did it. Or, well, I was really good at this, pat on the back. Let me work harder at this because I've got some blanks there. That visual element and the accountability, that's a great way to develop good habits with a positive approach that feels a little less pressure than maybe we might put on ourselves to get this done, if that makes sense. It's simple.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. It's just, hey, I'm going to fill in my blanks today. I'm going to fill in my spaces.
Well, just like everybody now today, they're always tracking their steps, with their watches and everything, because they're trying to be, they're closing their rings because they're using the Apple system, right? To track what they're doing
Mhm.
for their physical body, and they get all excited and juiced when they achieve their goal. But the question is, what are you doing about your mind? What are you doing for your spirit? How are you strengthening them? Can you track it? And all we're trying to do, and I'm sure you know this, Deb, is that we are a byproduct of what we consume. You are what you eat.
Oh,
You are what
yes.
you think. And the steps program is
Yes.
just about that. Helping improve the habits. And if I can share the steps real quick with your audience and
Oh,
everything,
please.
if they have, if they're
Yes.
not familiar what they are. And 5 steps is just an acronym for the word sleep, think, eat, physical, and spirit. And all you do is, like, for the first one, sleep. Did you sleep with good thoughts last night? Did you sleep with thinking about all the things you want to see happen with your tomorrow? Or did you fall asleep with the remote
Ooh, that's
control in
good.
your hand, or your phone in your hand, and just let whatever thoughts were in your subconscious mind race through your subconscious mind for the next 7 to 8 hours? So, but if you did sleep with a smile on your face, as I phrase it always, because you were dreaming and visualizing, thinking about whether something you want to see happen 5 days from now, or something you want to see happen 5 years from now, right? But if you can fall asleep
Hmm.
with that image in your mind, and the more vivid you can paint that image and see it, the bigger your smile grows. I mean, it's just amazing. I'll be in bed at nighttime and I'll start just laying there, and I'll just start focusing on whatever thing I'm thinking about, and I just I feel my cheeks almost hurt because because the image becomes so vivid. And that's what you want to see. If the mind can conceive it, the body can achieve it. And so
Well,
that's what the first step is, sleep. If you did something to help improve yourself, is for your mind, feed your mind for a third of your life. What are you feeding it for a third of your life when you're sleeping? And so what do I say? We know not to eat junky food before you go to bed, right? But what are you feeding your mind when you fall asleep at nighttime? You just letting it
mm,
because you fell asleep with a remote control in your hand, or or your cell phone in your hand. Just let your mind drift off this way, as opposed to focusing on some of the dreams that you want to see happen. So that's the first step, sleep. The
that's
next step is
awesome.
think.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And the next step is just real simple, is think. And it's kind of a takeoff on think, what thought did you fill your mind with? You reap what you sow. If you don't have to we've all read and heard of the books about positive thinking, this, that, and the other. And there's a lot of truth to that. You don't need to repeat, as I say, a positive mantra, a bazillion times. But 1 or 2 minutes of saying, hey, I'm good, I'm strong, I'm better, I'm healthy, whatever adjectives you want to add to yourself, that's 1 or 2 less minutes you're kicking yourself in the rear about why you're not where you want to be. And so it's just
Yeah.
about just slowly moving the needle from what do researchers say? They say that we process about 50,000 thoughts a day. And they all say that of
Wow.
those 50,000 thoughts, 80% of them are yesterday's reruns. So think about that. The 50,000 thoughts that you're going to run through your head today, 80% of them are from yesterday. And of those yesterday's thoughts, 90% of them are slanted negatively, right? I mean, we all know if you
Hmm.
get a review, you get 12 really good reviews, you get that one that tells you you stink. It's the one that sticks in your craw the whole time.
Yes. Yes.
So all we're trying to do is say, hey, it's time to think, can you just add a little bit of feeling, as I say, we're all trying to become healthy, wealthy, and wise, basically, right? And if you can't get to be healthy, wealthy, wise, at least you want to be bigger, better, bolder, as I like to say also. And so, and you think, can you, 30 seconds here, a minute there, to remind yourself of whatever phraseology you want to add to yourself. You don't have to tell anybody, but you have to feel it. I mean, you don't walk up to the batter's box thinking you're not going to get a hit. You have to go up there with confidence. So every day you have to project in your mind, at least believe that you can do this. And so if you find that you're starting to do that little more than what you did yesterday, shade in the tea. That's just the simple aspect of it there. And then eat is simple. I mean, because I think people are more familiar. Did you eat good today? I didn't ask if you ate perfect, because I know some of the diet books are really stringent. But did you eat right today? If you're trying to get healthy, you overcome some kind of malady, this and the other, you are what you eat. And so if you ate good, shade in the E. And as I always tell everybody, you don't have to eat perfect. For some people, you know, some people, it has to be grass fed, it has to be organic, it has to be this, that, and the other. Others, it might be, hey, I'm not going to get a second serving. I'm not going to get dessert. I'm not going to use the artificial this. So everybody's on a different level of feel, but for where you're at, hey, did I eat better today? That's going to get me closer to my health and fitness goals. Shade in the E. Did I do anything physical today? I'm not asking if it was an aerobic workout, anaerobic, long workout, good workout, short workout. Did you bike, swim, dance? What did you find? Did you find time to carve out? Did you find time to carve out some time to do something physical that day? If you did, shade in the P, and it's like tomorrow I'm traveling. So, because I leave early in the morning and everything, it's like my workout is the 30-minute hike from my car to the airport gate with a 20-pound backpack. I do that
Yeah.
twice, going to the airport and back. I mean, that's a workout, and so I feel okay. And when they come back and look, I said, hey, I was physically active 5, 6 days of the week. Okay. I was eating 4, 5, 6 days of good eating. And to continue, I'm sorry, to get into the last one, spirit. Did you work your spiritual muscles? And I always tell, I'm a big believer that to neglect your spirit is like skipping a meal. It leaves you empty. So I think you need to be
Hmm.
working your spiritual muscles. I think it provides something that for some of us, we may not be, you don't know, because I know there's a lot of people that are lost, looking, and been let down in their spiritual journeys
Yeah.
and whatnot. But that doesn't mean it's still not there. They're not to say tricksters and hustlers out there, but sometimes people that are giving you guidance may not be giving you the right kind of like other guys in health profession. They're not all good. uh, and so if you did something to work your spiritual muscles, I mean, because I was really caught into the okay, I started. I'm going to read. I'm going to read. I'm going to read scripture and everything. So I'd sit home. One day I did it. Next day I did it. Then 5 days I didn't do anything. I always found something better, something I shouldn't say better, something other to do, right? And
Something different.
everybody
Yeah.
has those choices. but today it's so different now, and I didn't realize that. Hey, we all carry one of these in our backpack, our little cell phones with us. Man, there's podcasts you can listen to help you work your spiritual muscles if you didn't attend service. But you know, if you only attend service or think about it, once a week, once a month, twice a year, you may not have that spiritual strength that many of us would like to have. And so that's what the 5 steps are. Every day you shading the steps for your activity. It's just a simple tool to help you track to see, are you doing what you should be doing to get where you want to get going, where you want to be.
I love that. And the fact that it has a holistic approach. I can remember back 30 years ago, I would hear the word holistic and I would think it was somehow related to like some woo woo voodoo situation. And all it means is
Right.
understanding that we are several parts that work together. And if you
Right.
only take care of one of those, you're really not taking care of any of those. Just like your program talks about, you have to be physically sound. Pay attention to your physical, pay attention to your thinking, pay attention to your spirit, and all of it will work together as well as it possibly can. That's just
Absolutely.
such a good message, and we do need that. It's great to track our calories and track our steps in our apps, but yours is the one where I see all of that come together. When did you first find out how important habits and attitudes are to getting where we want to be in life?
Oh, that's a good. It was probably after I graduated college, because I was the typical route. I went to high school, then went to 4 or 5 years of college and everything. Then I was out in the real world and
Mhm.
everything. And good or bad, but it's what I've learned in my opinion now, because I'm the older guy with the younger kids. So I have 3 high schoolers right now. And back then, I got out from college, and I started in the pre-med genre, but in that first decade, it was like, well, this is just reading and memorization. I hate this. It just didn't make me think and
Yeah.
everything. So that I got into the business world, but it's. I was going on 3 different things right now as far as how I got to it, but I realized it was like in my mid 20s that just trying to find a job, take a job. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I think that's a big struggle for so many people because and I think it's going to
Yeah.
get tougher coming up because just the way the world is changing with the whole AI stuff and the opportunities of some of the things my limited knowledge of what kind of careers or jobs will be there. Are these jobs going to be replaced with AI, skill work, everything? But it was, I
Mhm.
started just struggling in my early 20s and everything, and didn't know what I wanted to do, and started thinking about it and thinking about it. And so I finally started reading a book. Never read a book other than what I did for schoolwork until like the early
Mhm.
20s and everything, and just started reading some of the books, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much perfect sense and everything. Not too long ago, I was being interviewed, and they asked, what's one of the earliest books that you really remember? And I guess to date me, it was um, Dress for Success. When that book came out, it was like, oh,
Mhm.
there's a certain image. This is back and I think the book came out in the early 80s. There's a certain
Mhm.
image, because this is back then when everybody went to the office, dressed up appropriately, wore ties, tucked their shirts in and all that kind of stuff. And there's just, if you want to go get
Mhm.
that corporate job, which was the normal thing, okay, if you come in blue jeans or just your pants hanging down the back end of your rear. You just didn't cut it going into the IBMs of the world. And so that was
Right.
one, the power of positive thinking, and several of those books like that just opened my eyes that I wasn't taught this in school. No one ever told me about goals and dreams and where do I want to go? And no one ever solicited that to me and everything. And so it was just, reading books. And as I learned, when I first wrote one of my first books, it was just talking about the 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 category that has the most books published each year. There's a neck and neck between weight loss and diet and weight loss and personal development. So everybody gets to, that 30 years of age, and they go, hey, I'm not where I really want to be. And what do I need to do? And so
Mhm.
back then, you turn to the books and you start reading the books. And we're still doing the same thing. Just we're getting the books in a different format now.
Yes. Yes, we go to our podcasts for that a lot of the time. That's so true. And you mentioned how when we get to our 30s and we start to kind of assess where we're at. I think that's a very common thing because we're in our 20s we're trying to establish something, anything, whether it's our own expectation or someone else's that we had
Right.
internalized from growing up. And we're just kind of trying to figure out life. And then we hit our 30s and we go, okay, now life is definitely on me. Am I where I want to be? And I was thinking about that accountability piece that goes along with your steps. We come from being in school. Like you said, it was the first book I had read since school. Being in school compels us to do certain things and makes us accountable for those things that we wouldn't just naturally reach for on a daily basis. And we get to
Right.
see grades, we get to see progress written down in a physical way and feedback, which helps us know what direction to go in. And maybe that's a piece that kind of gets lost as we move out of high school and college and try to do life without reflection on what we've just done and accountability and the thought of creating good habits because we don't have that structure necessarily.
And yeah, that's a great point because it just my observation, and when I was in full practice and my patients would come in, and they were there for health and wellness, health and fitness genres, right? But as we started
Mm-hmm.
talking and talking and talking, it wasn't a therapy session or not, but they were not confession, but they would just share what was going on in their life. And for it was kind of amazing to me, some people that are in their 30s and 40s, they this isn't the path they really chose. It was kind of chosen
Mm-hmm.
for them. Either they came and worked for the family business per se, found had a girlfriend. The next thing we either got pregnant or we got married, and I didn't know it was going to be like this. I should have done a better job of saying, these are the qualities I really want to look for. And unfortunately, she was just pretty, just from the
Yeah.
guy's point of view, sort of. But you and so a lot of my patients, they would just kind of share a little bit of just kind of not unhappiness, but just they're not going to where they wanted to go because no one told them that. Now there were other patients that they would share because they knew what they wanted to do when they were like 10, 12, 15, 20 years of age, and they're doing that because they knew. And I think it's like a lot of the books I read, and I'm sure you've read them too, Deb, just talking about if you know where you want to go, you have direction for yourself. If you have goals and everything, and
Yes.
for a lot of younger kids, and I say not just teenagers, but people in their early 20s, that may be listening to this thing, early 30s, they don't know what they want to do. No one's really told them, hey, you have to go figure out what you want to do. And back in the 80s and 90s, it was just kind of normal after you finish those first 18 years of your life. All right, I'm going to go to college. You go to college, I think 4 years later, you come out,
Mm-hmm.
you have a degree, but you're not using it. You find a job to where I mean, if you want to go to college because you want to be an engineer, you want to be a doctor, you want to be an attorney, great, great, great. But so many people, as research has shown, they just go that pathway. And then, 3 years later, 2 years later, they're doing something that's not even close to what they got their degree in. And as I try to tell my kids, going to college and the first 18 years of your life, it's kind of all the steps are kind of planned out for you, yeah. And I
Yep.
think employers look at you, can you jump through the hoops that I want to see you can jump through? And those that are like more self-employed, and those who know what they want to do, they know which hoop they want to jump through. A lot of people don't know. They're
Yes.
just jumping, and they're just following the
Yeah.
system, and then that's where, because they didn't have the control, they're not as content sometimes with where they're at there and everything. And there, I always like to tell my patients, there's an old analogy that it's a biblical statement, the land of milk and honey. And I always say, we all know where the land of milk and honey is. Do you know what your land of milk and honey is? Don't complain if you don't arrive at the land of milk and honey. Don't complain if you don't know what your land of milk and honey is, because if you don't know what your land of milk and honey is, don't complain if you arrive at heartaches and headaches. And for a lot of people, they end up at heartaches and headache because they didn't know where they were trying to go, what they were trying to achieve. They were just living for the next day, for the next day, for the next day, as opposed to planning for where I want to go. And as I always say, yesterday's in the past. Today is the day you want to visualize, dream about your tomorrow. What do you want your tomorrow to be like and everything? And so it comes back to, the part of the steps. Are you focusing on your dream? When you go to sleep, are you seeing yourself, hey, I just want to do good on this test tomorrow. I'm playing in the ball game tomorrow. I want to do good. I'm giving a presentation. I'm doing an interview. I want to see myself do really great in that thing. So you can just visualize a
Yeah.
day down the road, 5 days, 5 years down the road. You never know. Y- from I'll share one story. One of my dreams back then, because I was late to the game, was getting married. um, and I used to visualize my marriage and everything, just see myself, in the church, in there, seeing myself waiting, see my brothers and my mom and dad out there waiting, and the music going, and all of a sudden, down at the end of the I shouldn't say runway. Down to the end of the entryway of the church, there's my beautiful
Hmm.
wife sitting out there, standing over there with the sun behind her. Couldn't see what she looked like. I just know that she was there in this big, beautiful white dress. And lo and behold, 4 or 5 years later, that's exactly how it happened. And I was like, cool. So,
Wow.
that was one of my visualizations, one of my dreams I have for myself.
That's so neat. And there is power in visualization. There is a connection to our brain. And I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I know there are so much anecdotal evidence showing that when you visualize what you want and you have it firmly in your mind, and you even visualize the work you're going to have to do to get there, because it's
Right,
not magic, it just sets your mind on the right path. My pastor once told a story about, I don't remember if he was, this is my pastor growing up, I don't remember if he was skiing or a friend of his was skiing, but whoever was skiing at the time, they saw a tree in the distance, and they began thinking, I don't need to hit that tree. I really don't need to hit that tree. I better not hit that tree. But their entire focus was on the tree, and they hit the tree because that's what they were looking at, and that's where their focus was. And I
right,
think that's what
right.
happens in our minds.
Oh, absolutely. And I think just research I read, and just all the various things I read, I think, especially our next generation coming about, and even our generation, as I've said, the patients I would talk with and everything share that they didn't know where they wanted to be. They're just here. And I
Hmm.
when I first created 5 steps, I kind of shared, after the magazine said they dug in everything. I started scratching my head. Let me see what I need to write for each one of the steps, that in written form, because I knew what they were, but how do I express them to you, or do I share it to somebody? So I wrote it down,
Hmm.
showed it to some other friends of mine, and the two things they all told me was, "This is really cool, and this needs to be an app, not a calendar, and my kids need to read this." So that's kind of helped get me to the point to where it must have been after about half a dozen people told me my kids need to read this thing, especially when I talked about the think part. And as I started trying to
Hmm.
write one for the kids, what helped me decide to write it for the kids, because I shared it with my pastor, and he looked at it, and he thought, oh, this is nice, yeah, great. And kind of, Jesus couldn't heal anybody in his hometown either, right? But one of the student pastors, he
Oh
saw
gosh.
this, he saw the 5 steps. He goes, this is really cool. And he came back a few days later and said, hey, would you come and speak to the kids here, but the teenagers, because of the think part is really, I think that's really powerful, because the teenagers, that's who he's dealing with. They're really and doing a lot of thinking. And I started, as I did my own research and everything, how to write it, because what you and I are concerned with about mostly, and probably most of your audience, they're not too concerned as a teenager. We are more concerned with, calories in, and cholesterol and
Hmm.
blood pressure.
Hi, Gen X Jugglers. Please pardon the interruption. I need to tell you real quick of a technical glitch that occurred during the downloading of this episode. The good news is Dr. Len's audio and video came out great. The bad news is, for some reason at this point in the recording, my audio and video just disappears. It didn't download properly. So while I did continue to ask Dr. Len questions and he answered them and we had a conversation, all you can hear from this point on is his side of the conversation. I decided to go ahead and bring it to you because he has a lot of good stuff to say, a lot of good insight, and I don't want you to miss out. Now back to the show.
For eating and stuff like that and sleeping, we're thinking about just getting 8 hours. For them, they're thinking something different, but it's the same thing. And so what I realized that for teenagers in the second decade of their life, they get total control of what they get to put into their mental shopping cart. I mean, they don't control what they put in my shopping cart because they're not paying for it. But for their mental shopping cart, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, the way they think, it's easy to say, oh, I'm no good. I can't do this. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that. And you just keep playing again. And if you keep telling yourself you can't do this or you're fearful of that, or, nobody likes me or whatever less than positive phrase you have, that's going to keep growing. That's what you're feeding and everything. And, as adults, we know we're not supposed to do some of those things. But teenagers, they're not taught that yet, and when they're 12, 13, 14 years of age and everything. But hopefully they can help them understand that, yeah, you can't always think of, you have to think of yourself when you go in that classroom, you're going to get an A. You're going to do good when you audition for first chair, when you're going to you're going to make the team. You got to see yourself, getting your diploma, getting the scholarship. You just can't, no, nobody likes me. I'm no good. I can't do this and can't do that. But I think that just continues to snowball in people's thinking, not just for teenagers, but for adults as well. And sometimes you just have to open their eyes to it. And like anything else, when you start, oh, it's not bad walking. Okay, walking's not bad just from here to down the street. Oh, I can walk around the block now. Oh, I can actually start jogging home. So just little steps to begin with. Yeah, they can go. You'll still go to 5 steps a day. You can download it. Then you get the option if you want the teen version or the adult version. And as I say, it all looks the same, but the 4 or 5 paragraphs that describe each of the steps are different because when I talk for kids about eating right, that, like I said, they don't care about blood pressure and cholesterol and fat grams and all that's all about taste. So I try to write it for what's important for them. And so I really kind of focus on, getting the proper pre-brain meal as then opposed to just like a pre-game workout, what meal you're supposed to have before the game. Here's what you need to eat before you go in for the big test, before you go give that presentation, before you go up on stage, before you go audition, so your brain is really firing properly. Because if you eat the chips, the cookies, the crackers, and stuff like that before you go do your audition, your interview, your whatever, your brain's going to be more sleepy instead of being, firing on all cylinders. And so just to address it that way for them, as opposed to, I think that just so they can say, hey, I want to do good on this test today. Prepare yourself, have the pre-brain meal as opposed to just going in and having chips and cookies and crackers. And burger and chips and a shake are great. I have them too as well, but just don't have them before I'm going to go take a big. It's like coming out here when I would used to lecture and tell people, hey, if you're about to go get for an adult, if you're about to go give a presentation, when you come on the show, okay, when you need all your faculties just firing, there's certainty you want to eat more of a protein rich meal because that'll help keep that brain firing. Where if you sit there and say, guys, I haven't eaten anything, I need to get my blood sugar up, you eat crackers and cookies and chips and stuff like that, you're going to get a little surge, but it's going to really start dropping down because you're going to start producing more tryptophan that's going to help put you a little sleepy, and the brain's not going to be firing as well as it should be. So just FYI, if you weren't familiar with that, before you do your shows, just always make it a good protein meal. That way you will have, so you don't need coffee to stimulate you and everything. Yeah, when I was in practice, when patients would come into me, we're talking about health and wellness, right? And so we needed to change their diet because the fuel they were putting into their body wasn't fueling them as well as it could be. So I said, listen, for the next week or so, you're going to have an opportunity to take 21 steps towards better health. And I say 21 steps three meals a day, 7 days a week. And I would say just visualize 21 footsteps in the sand. And it would be great if you took 21. I don't expect you to take 21. It would be nice. But the point I want you to understand, Mr. and Mrs. Young, is that if you take 16 or 17 good meals throughout the week up here and have 2 or 3 or 4 bad meals, cheat meals, at least you're making forward progress. The mistake I think a lot of people make is that they'll have a good breakfast, then they'll have a cruddy lunch, for whatever reason, and they really blow it. Or they may have two good meals and they have the splurge meal, and then they just really, they're off the wagon. Their next meal is going to be a bad meal. They don't realize that, hey, that you can get back on the horse again. Two good meals and one bad meal, you're 2 steps forward and 1 step back, still has you moving forward. And so the 21 steps was just, hey, just see yourself, if you can see 16, 15, 17 steps out there, put that in your mind, and it just shows progress for you. And I thought it was just it was a mental hack. That's all it was, just a little way to get them. But the 21 steps kind of helped me veer into, oh, let me call this 5 steps a day. But I used to call it action steps. When I first created, it called it action steps. And I go, that's just too generic. Everybody has the, action plan, and then I came up with 5 steps. And I go, it is 5 steps. All you got to do is take 5 steps, body, mind, and spirit. So that's how the 21 or 5 steps kind of evolved from the 21 steps I use with my patients for that venue. And again, it doesn't matter, you can rate how you want to decide. Again, some people are 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight. Others are really fit and competitive, so to speak. And so, but hey, did you carve out some time in your day to do something physical? And I will point out that, the physical step is not like the eat and think, or it's not like the eat, think, and sleep step, because that's something you do every day. But physical, it may be a day you don't work out, because you don't have to work out every day, right? Yeah, just because your lifestyle is there, but you're going to always be thinking, you're going to always be eating, you're always going to be sleeping. And again, what did you do when you went to sleep? Did you just go into bed and with the remote control in your hand and all the conk out? Are you kind of, again, this is where vision boards, I'm sure you're familiar with vision boards. This is another great way to help you just look at there. This is where I want to see myself on the cruise. I want to see myself on the beach. I want to see myself in a new car in the corner office building, whatever it is that you're dreaming about, right? Getting your diploma, getting a college scholarship, getting, whatever you're focused on, everything. But as I said earlier, if you don't know where you want to go, don't cry and moan if you land up at the land of heartaches and headaches instead of the land of milk and honey. And so, and I think there are so many such great research out there just showing the percentage of younger people, 30 and under, let's say, that don't think of it that way. They haven't realized that. And maybe that's parents' fault, not teaching them that, hey, you got to start figuring out what you want in life and everything. And I struggle with that. I have 3 teenagers, and, how am I trying to get them to where I want them to decide where they want to be? It's like you don't have to do anything outwardly what you're doing. You don't have to show with anybody or share with anybody, but are you doing what you need to be doing to get yourself bigger, better, bolder, to get yourself to be healthy, wealthy, and wise, whatever for 3 words you want to use to get you to where you want to be. But are you taking action? I mean, you can't, like I tell my kids, and I'm sure you're the same way, you can't expect to make the team if you never out there practicing soccer, if you're never out there practicing your basketball, if you're never out there practicing your drum, so you have to put some time in there. And unfortunately, to go back to this little guy again, our little phones again, it's such a distraction. And as I would say, I learned this years ago. If I gave you $1,440 every day, what would you do with those $1,440? You think and scratch your head. I tell this to my kids. Would you invest that money? Would you give it to others? Would you share it? How would you use that $1,440? And they go, well, they would really think about that for a second. They go, let me ask you another question. If I was to give you 1,440 minutes a day, because that's how many minutes you get in a day, how are you investing those minutes? Oh, or how much of time are you using on this guy that just kind of wasted time? I mean, you can only see so many, in my opinion, so many cat videos, right? But this can be a great teaching aid too, but if you use it for all this other stuff, playing as many video games as possible, watch as many reruns or any TV show for 18 shows in a row and everything, to where, hey, I could have been using some of that time to improve my this, that, or the other. And it's all about choices. We all have an opportunity to make choice. Change, as I say, change is about creating habits and attitudes now for greater expectation. Change doesn't happen by accident. You have to put forth some effort. It's intentional. And 5 steps a day is just trying to help you change, create habits and attitudes now for greater expectation, because you're trying to get better. And so that's my little acronym, or my little for the word change and everything. Are you doing things that's going to make you bigger, better, bolder? If you are, it'll move you in that right direction. If you're going to keep doing the same thing that you've been doing yesterday, you're not going to make that. You're going to keep getting what you've been getting. So if you want tomorrow to be different, you got to do something different today. Maybe I need to give myself a little mental pat on the back. You don't got to tell yourself anything crazy, but when I would lecture, I always tell everybody, we've all heard the story, of, it's a ninth inning, 2 outs, you're down by a run, who comes up to bat? Not me. I made the last down the last inning, but the next guy that's going to come up to bat and everything, what are you going to tell them? What are you going to tell them? Oh no, he's the worst one on the team. He hasn't got a hit all season. You're going to try to put words of confidence in that person. Yeah. And so each day you got to tell yourself, I can do it. I'm going to have a good day. I feel great. Unfortunately, I think I say it that way, that so often people wake up in the morning, and I always ask them, how long does it take you before you tell yourself you're going to have a good day? I feel great. Life's going to be better. Or how long does it take you to turn this on, put music on, put some kind of distraction in there, so you don't have to think for yourself, and focus on something positive? The power of positive thinking, great stuff and everything. And you don't got to say it a phrase a bazillion times, but you have to start putting some positive thoughts into your being. And we've all heard born leaders, and I always say, born leaders and positive thinkers, that doesn't happen. There's learned leaders and positive thinkers. It's a learned skill. And so whether you're going to learn that skill to be a leader, to be a positive thinker, that's just how, and all 5 steps trying to do, hold you personally accountable. You don't have to show it to anybody. You can, if you want to. You can get a partner and say, hey, let's do it together and see how you're doing, and hold ourselves accountable that we're still doing it. But you don't have to. All you got to do is, hey, maybe I do need to start saying that I can do this. I feel strong. I'm healthy. I'm better. I'm worthy of this, that, and the other. And you start feeding some of those thoughts. And at nighttime, hey, if you get a vision board, fantastic. Do you need one? No, but could it be helpful? Absolutely. At least you know what you're trying to aim for. Whether it, again, that new office, if you create a new business, trying to just get through college, trying to get through the next promotion. My goal is I want to have a new car. I want to have a bigger car, a better house. Everybody has different goals, but if you have that, you can see that. And if the mind can conceive it, the body can achieve it, as they say. Hey, thank you so much, Deb. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I want to send a big thank you to Dr. Len Lopez for joining me on the podcast today. We learned so much. Gen X Jugglers, make sure and go to 5stepsaday.com to learn even more and see this system in action for yourself and for your teens. And of course, you'll find links in the show notes.
Nobody's ever gonna take your place. Yeah, I think we should meet in the middle. I follow you 'cause you're the light of the day. I need you like you need me, it's so simple.